The answer is because I cared deeply about making a positive difference in helping the most vulnerable and supporting those who are most in need.
An unexpected royal journey has ignited fresh questions that Buckingham Palace cannot easily silence. Queen Camilla's discreet trip to Scotland has fueled speculation, but Princess Catherine's quiet search for answers uncovers a forgotten 45-year royal mystery that could reshape how royal history is understood. Is this simply a private visit, or does it reveal a hidden chapter waiting to be explained? So what do you think? Should Catherine keep investigating? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us whether this mystery deserves deeper scrutiny. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more royal stories ahead. Scotland visit raises fresh questions. News of Camilla's quiet journey to Scotland spread through royal circles with unusual speed. Not because the visit had been publicly announced, but because almost nothing had been said about it at all. For a family whose official engagements are normally planned well in advance, the lack of detail immediately attracted attention. Palace staff noticed that the trip appeared on no public schedule, and no formal explanation accompanied it. While private visits are not uncommon within the royal family, the unusual level of discretion surrounding this one encouraged quiet speculation among those accustomed to the monarchy's carefully managed routines. Catherine did not rush to conclusions. Years spent navigating public life had taught her that appearances could often be misleading. Even so, she understood the importance of paying attention when familiar patterns suddenly changed. She quietly reviewed the official calendar and compared recent engagements with the limited information that had been released. Nothing suggested an urgent public duty in Scotland, nor did the palace issue the kind of brief statement that usually accompanies private family travel. The absence of information became almost as noticeable as the journey itself. Scotland has always held a unique place in the story of the modern monarchy. It has long served as both a place of official responsibility and a personal refuge for generations of royals. Estates, traditions, and family memories stretching back decades have given the country a significance unlike any other royal destination. Many defining moments have unfolded there, from private family gatherings to periods of national reflection. Because of that history, any unexpected visit naturally invites greater curiosity than a similar journey elsewhere. As Catherine reflected on the circumstances, she found herself considering whether the destination itself might hold the key. The timing, the privacy, and the careful handling of information seemed unusually deliberate. There was no evidence that anything improper had occurred, yet the decision to keep details so limited encouraged questions rather than answers. Some observers suggested the visit could simply involve a deeply personal commitment away from public attention. Others wondered whether it related to an overlooked chapter of royal history, whose importance had faded from public memory but remained meaningful inside the family. Rather than treating rumors as facts, Catherine focused on what could actually be verified. She sought context instead of conclusions, recognizing that history often reveals its significance only after seemingly unrelated events are viewed together. Conversations with trusted advisors emphasized patience, reminding her that royal traditions sometimes require privacy for reasons that are never publicly explained. Still, the more she examined the broader historical backdrop, the more she sensed that Scotland represented more than a destination. It appeared to be the starting point of a story reaching back decades, one whose forgotten connections might finally be resurfacing. Whatever had prompted the visit, its true significance seemed unlikely to rest in a single journey. Instead, it hinted at a much older narrative waiting patiently beneath the surface, where history, memory, and unanswered questions were beginning to intersect once again. Why would Camilla's Scotland journey be hidden from even the closest royal observers? What truly happened behind those quiet midnight arrangements? And why does Catherine sense something deliberately concealed? And if this trip was innocent, why are the palace corridors suddenly so silent right now? Let's find out. Silence deepens. Historic royal puzzle. As attention surrounding Camilla's visit to Scotland continued to grow, the greatest source of curiosity was not what had been announced, but what had been left unsaid. The royal household had acknowledged very little about the journey, leaving royal commentators and longtime observers with more questions than answers. Private engagements have always formed part of royal life, yet they are often accompanied by at least a brief explanation to avoid unnecessary speculation. This time, however, the limited information encouraged wider discussion instead of settling public interest. Catherine approached the situation with characteristic restraint. Rather than relying on rumors or dramatic assumptions, she focused on understanding the broader picture. She reviewed recent public engagements and compared them with the official calendar, noticing that the Scotland visit appeared unusually isolated from the family's otherwise well-documented schedule. That observation alone proved nothing, yet it highlighted how carefully the journey had been handled. In royal life, even small changes in routine can attract significant attention, because every appearance is normally planned with remarkable precision. As conversations quietly unfolded among royal correspondents and historians, different explanations began to emerge. Some believed the journey reflected nothing more than a deeply personal commitment away from public view. Others suggested it might involve long-standing friendships or private family matters that deserved discretion. Neither interpretation could be confirmed, and no reliable evidence pointed decisively toward either conclusion. The uncertainty itself became the story, reminding observers that the absence of information often invites as much discussion as any official announcement. The more Catherine reflected on Scotland's place within the royal family's history, the more she appreciated why the destination carried such symbolic weight. For generations, Scotland has represented far more than a location on a map. It has been a setting for family gatherings, important conversations, moments of reflection, and some of the monarchy's most significant personal memories. From quiet summers at Balmoral to occasions that shaped public perceptions of the crown, Scotland has repeatedly stood at the intersection of private family life and national history. That historical backdrop naturally encouraged Catherine to think beyond immediate events. Rather than viewing the visit solely through the lens of current affairs, she considered whether its significance might lie in connections stretching back decades. Public records, biographies, and historical accounts already documented how the early years of Charles and Camilla's relationship unfolded under extraordinary public scrutiny. Those well-known events remained part of Britain's modern royal story, and any return to places associated with that period could easily renew public curiosity. Even so, Catherine resisted drawing conclusions before the facts were clear. She understood that history is often more complex than headlines suggest, and that private reflection does not necessarily signal hidden meaning. Yet she also recognized that certain places preserve memories long after public attention has moved elsewhere. As the questions surrounding Scotland continued to linger without clear answers, the journey appeared to represent something larger than a simple change of scenery. It hinted that the next chapter of this story might be found not in today's headlines, but in the overlooked corners of royal history still waiting to be understood. So what is really happening beneath this private visit? Why do the palace records omit key details? And what history is being quietly protected in Scotland? Could Catherine be standing at the edge of a revelation no one is ready to confront? Keep watching. Past echoes shape present questions. As Catherine reflected on the unanswered questions surrounding Camilla's visit to Scotland, her thoughts naturally turned to a very different Britain, one that existed more than 45 years earlier. The early 1980s marked one of the most closely watched periods in modern royal history, when public fascination with the monarchy reached extraordinary levels, and every personal decision seemed to carry national importance. It was a time when tradition, expectation, and personal relationships collided in ways that would influence the royal family for decades to come. Long before Camilla became queen, her relationship with Charles had already attracted significant attention. Their friendship, and the circumstances surrounding it, became the subject of widespread public discussion as Charles prepared for the future that awaited him as heir to the throne. Historians have often described those years as a period when personal happiness and royal duty did not always move in the same direction. Decisions made during that era were shaped not only by individual feelings, but also by centuries of constitutional tradition and intense public scrutiny. At the same time, Britain expected the monarchy to project stability and continuity. Every appearance, every engagement, and every major family milestone was viewed through the lens of national identity. The marriage of Charles and Diana became one of the defining moments of that period, celebrated across the world as a symbol of hope for the future of the crown. Yet behind the pageantry, historians have continued to debate the pressures placed upon those closest to the institution, and how those pressures affected relationships that had developed long before the wedding captured global attention. Throughout those years, Scotland remained far more than a scenic backdrop. Balmoral had long served as a place where members of the royal family could spend time away from the formal demands of public life. Some of the family's happiest memories were created there, while other moments became deeply significant because they unfolded beyond the constant attention of cameras. For generations, Scotland offered a rare balance between royal duty and private reflection, making it a setting closely connected with both celebration and difficult decisions. As Catherine considered that history, she realized the recent journey could not be understood simply by looking at present events. Places often preserve meaning long after circumstances have changed, and Scotland has witnessed several defining chapters in the monarchy's modern story. The passage of 45 years had altered public perceptions, introduced new generations, and transformed the roles of those once at the center of intense public debate. Even so, the emotional and historical importance of that period had never completely disappeared. Rather than searching for hidden scandals, Catherine found herself searching for historical context. She recognized that understanding today's events sometimes required revisiting yesterday's decisions with a fresh perspective instead of fresh suspicion. The deeper she explored the well-documented history surrounding those formative years, the clearer it became that the Scotland visit might not represent a new mystery at all. Instead, it seemed to invite a renewed examination of a familiar story whose lasting significance had quietly endured beneath the surface of royal history. 45 years earlier, what really unfolded behind closed doors of the monarchy, and why does it still echo into the present? Was it simply duty, or something far more personal shaping decisions we are only now beginning to understand? And who truly carried the consequences? Stay with us. Hidden records reveal lasting connections. With each passing day, Catherine found herself returning to the same question. Why had Scotland become the destination that drew so much quiet attention? Rather than searching for dramatic answers, she chose to revisit the well-documented history surrounding the royal family's connection to the country. She knew that history often leaves its clearest clues in records that have been publicly available for years, but are rarely considered together. The goal was not to rewrite the past, but to understand whether familiar events revealed a larger pattern when viewed through a different lens. She began examining published biographies, official royal timelines, archived public engagements, and historical accounts that trace the monarchy's relationship with Scotland across several generations. Individually, none of these sources revealed anything unexpected. Together, however, they painted a richer picture of how Scotland had repeatedly served as the backdrop for defining moments in royal life. It was where traditions were preserved, family relationships strengthened, and important conversations often unfolded away from the constant attention that followed the monarchy elsewhere. As Catherine continued reading, recurring themes slowly became impossible to ignore. Scotland appeared again and again whenever the royal family entered periods of significant transition. Major anniversaries, private reflections, and moments of personal decision frequently shared the same setting. Historians had long observed this pattern, yet it rarely attracted widespread discussion because the individual events were usually remembered separately rather than as parts of a continuing historical story. Old diaries published by former staff members and memoirs written by people who had worked closely with the royal household added another layer of perspective. While their experiences differed, many described Scotland as a place where members of the royal family could temporarily step away from ceremonial obligations and focus on personal matters. Those recollections did not reveal hidden secrets, but they reinforced the idea that the country's importance extended far beyond official engagements. Its value rested equally in memory, continuity, and tradition. Public records also showed how frequently Scotland reappeared during milestones that shaped modern perceptions of the monarchy. Over several decades, it remained connected to changing generations, evolving public expectations, and moments that influenced both the institution and the family within it. Catherine realized that these repeated connections were unlikely to be accidental. Instead, they reflected a consistent role that Scotland had quietly played throughout contemporary royal history. The more she compared historical accounts with recent events, the clearer one possibility became. Camilla's visit might not have been significant because it introduced something entirely new. Its importance could instead lie in how it echoed patterns already established over decades. Sometimes the meaning of an event is found not in the event itself, but in the history surrounding it. That thought encouraged Catherine to look beyond isolated facts and consider the broader narrative taking shape. Although many questions still remained unanswered, the scattered pieces were beginning to fit together in a more meaningful way. The journey to Scotland no longer seemed like an isolated episode disconnected from the past. Instead, it appeared to stand within a long and well-documented tradition, suggesting that understanding the present would require an even closer examination of the royal family's enduring relationship with history, memory, and the places that continued to define both. What if the forgotten records were never truly forgotten? Why do the same references appear across decades of royal history? Who was trying to keep these documents hidden? And what happens when Catherine follows the trail no one was meant to reopen in the palace? Stay glued. History's threads finally intertwine quietly. By this stage, the scattered pieces of the story no longer appeared isolated. As Catherine continued reflecting on publicly documented royal history, a broader picture gradually begins to emerge. Events that had once seemed unrelated now appeared connected by a recurring thread, not because of hidden revelations, but because history often gains new meaning when viewed as a whole, rather than through individual moments. Scotland was no longer simply the setting of Camilla's recent visit. It had become the constant backdrop to many of the monarchy's most personal chapters, linking generations through shared traditions and lasting memories. Historical accounts, published biographies, and official records consistently pointed toward the same conclusion. Scotland had repeatedly served as a place where members of the royal family sought privacy during moments of personal significance. Whether marking milestones, reflecting during difficult periods, or spending time together away from official duties, the country occupied a unique position within the royal household. Those patterns had remained visible for decades, although they were often overshadowed by larger public events taking place elsewhere. As Catherine compared these accounts, she began to understand why recent events had attracted such widespread attention, despite the limited information available. The visit itself was not unusual when viewed within the wider history of the monarchy. What made it remarkable was the way it echoed earlier moments that had shaped public understanding of the royal family. Familiar places naturally revived familiar memories, encouraging observers to revisit the past while searching for meaning in the present. The contrast between public perception and private reality also became increasingly clear. Public discussion has often focused on ceremonies, official appearances, and widely reported milestones. Yet many of the family's most meaningful experiences have unfolded away from public view, in places chosen for reflection rather than publicity. Scotland has long provided that setting, allowing personal moments to exist alongside public responsibilities without necessarily becoming part of the historical record in real time. Looking back across more than 4 decades, Catherine recognized that history is rarely defined by a single event. Instead, it develops through countless decisions, relationships, and traditions that gradually shape the identity of an institution. The story surrounding Charles and Camilla had evolved dramatically over the years, moving from intense public debate to eventual acceptance within the framework of the modern monarchy. Understanding that transformation required more than remembering headlines. It required appreciating how time, circumstance, and changing perspectives had influenced both public opinion and the royal family itself. That realization also explained why preserving family history could carry such emotional significance. Some places remain important not because they hide dramatic secrets, but because they safeguard memories that continue to influence future generations. Scotland represented exactly that kind of place, where history lived quietly through tradition, continuity, and shared experience. By connecting these historical threads, Catherine no longer viewed the recent visit as an isolated event demanding immediate answers. Instead, it appeared to be another chapter in a much longer royal story, one that stretched across decades and invited a deeper understanding of how the past continues to shape the present. Even so, one important question still lingered. If the journey honored history, what specific legacy had drawn Camilla back to Scotland at this particular moment? Now that the fragments begin to align, what truth has been hidden in plain sight all along? Could Scotland's royal ties be far more deliberate than history admits? And if Catherine has already seen the pattern, what will be uncovered next? Stay tuned. Legacy reshapes royal family narrative. By the time Catherine stepped back to consider everything she had learned, the story looked remarkably different from where it had begun. What first appeared to be a mystery surrounding Camilla's quiet visit to Scotland had gradually evolved into something far broader. The journey itself had become less important than the history it encouraged people to revisit. Rather than uncovering hidden revelations, Catherine found herself confronting a larger truth about how public memory often shapes the reputation of the monarchy long after individual events have passed. The questions surrounding the visit now reflected decades of changing perspectives instead of a single unexplained decision. Looking back across more than 45 years, Catherine realized that every generation inherits not only royal titles, but also the stories attached to them. Some of those stories become symbols of national pride, while others remain subjects of continuing debate. The relationship between Charles and Camilla had long been one of those defining chapters. Public opinion changed dramatically over time, influenced by historical events, personal milestones, and the gradual passage of years. What once divided opinion eventually became part of the monarchy's continuing evolution, illustrating how history rarely remains fixed in one interpretation forever. Scotland occupied a unique place within that evolving story. For generations, it had represented continuity during periods of both celebration and uncertainty. Away from the demands of official ceremonies, it provided space for reflection that few other royal residences could offer. Its significance was never limited to geography alone. Instead, Scotland became a symbol of the monarchy's enduring connection to family traditions, reminding each generation that private moments often shape public institutions in quiet but lasting ways. As Catherine reflected on that legacy, she gained a deeper appreciation for the delicate balance every future monarch must preserve. The royal family exists under constant public attention, yet it also remains a family with personal memories, private relationships, and moments that deserve dignity. Maintaining that balance has never been simple. Greater openness can strengthen public understanding, while thoughtful privacy can protect meaningful traditions from being reduced to headlines. The challenge lies in recognizing where one responsibility ends and the other begins. That realization also shaped Catherine's understanding of her own future role within the monarchy. She recognized that leadership involves more than representing the crown during public engagements. It also requires respecting the institution's history while helping it remain relevant to a changing society. Learning from the past did not mean becoming trapped by it. Instead, it meant understanding how earlier decisions continued to influence present expectations and future responsibilities. The Scotland visit now appeared less like an isolated event and more like a reminder that history continues to accompany every step the royal family takes. Places, traditions, and memories carry meaning that cannot always be explained through official statements alone. As Catherine considered everything she had discovered, she understood that the true mystery had never been about one private journey. It was about how generations of history continue to shape the monarchy's identity, ensuring that the past quietly remains part of every chapter still waiting to be written. How does a single forgotten trip reshape everything we thought we knew about the monarchy? What if the truth was never hidden, only misunderstood for decades? And as Catherine digs deeper into history itself, what unsettling realization begins to surface next? Let's unravel the mystery. History finds its quiet answer. As Catherine finally stepped back from the questions that had surrounded Camilla's visit to Scotland, the mystery no longer seemed to demand a dramatic solution. Instead, it revealed something far more enduring. The journey had prompted a return to history, encouraging a closer look at events that had shaped the modern monarchy over more than 4 decades. What initially appeared to be an unexplained private visit gradually became a reminder that some of the royal family's most meaningful stories cannot be understood through a single moment. They only become clear when viewed across the passage of time. The Scotland trip had encouraged renewed interest in a period that began roughly 45 years earlier, when Charles and Camilla's relationship first entered public discussion. Since then, the monarchy had experienced enormous change, marked by celebrations, challenges, personal loss, and the transition from one reign to another. Public opinion had evolved alongside those events, transforming perceptions that once seemed unlikely to change. Looking back from the present, Catherine recognized that history had already answered many questions once surrounded by uncertainty, even if those answers had emerged gradually rather than all at once. Scotland remained central to that understanding. Across generations, it had offered members of the royal family a place where important memories were created away from ceremonial duties. It was a setting closely associated with reflection, continuity, and family tradition, making it entirely fitting that significant personal moments would continue to unfold there. The value of such places lies not in hidden meanings but in the memories they preserve, connecting different generations through shared experiences that often remain deeply personal despite their historical importance. As those reflections settled into a clearer picture, Catherine reached a quiet conclusion of her own. She understood that preserving history sometimes means accepting its complexity instead of searching for simple explanations. Every generation inherits a version of the past shaped by headlines, public debate, and changing social values. Yet beneath those shifting perspectives remains a deeper historical record that deserves careful consideration rather than quick judgment. That realization offered a broader understanding of why the Scotland visit had attracted such attention, despite revealing so little publicly. The experience also reinforced Catherine's appreciation of the responsibility that accompanies the future of the monarchy. The institution cannot move forward without acknowledging the events that shaped it, nor can it remain defined entirely by earlier chapters. Respecting tradition while embracing change has always required careful balance, and each generation must decide how best to carry that responsibility into the future. The past remains an essential guide, but it does not dictate every step that follows. In the end, the 45-year mystery proved less about discovering forgotten secrets than about rediscovering familiar history through a different perspective. Camilla's journey became symbolic not because it exposed hidden truths, but because it encouraged renewed reflection on the lasting relationship between memory, place, and legacy. As Catherine looked toward the future, she understood that the monarchy's greatest strength would not be found in rewriting its history. It would be found in remembering it with honesty, perspective, and an enduring commitment to the generations still to come. So, what do you think? Did Camilla's Scotland visit simply honor history, or did Catherine uncover a forgotten royal legacy? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.